Holy Family always happens right after Christmas, and it's such a great feast day. And I'm always like, we just had Christmas, and it's like you're celebrating the Holy Family, and then you're celebrating them again, and it feels to me like you just can't quite do it correctly. And sometimes you're just kind of exhausted and wore out from Christmas, because not only are you doing all the liturgical stuff at church, but you're also going to people's houses. You're going to trying to get to a few family things. So none of us are from here, so we're driving all over the diocese. And so you get to Holy Thursday, and it's kind of like, what have I got left to say? Oftentimes in the past, I would ask Deacon Larry to preach, because that way he could focus on that celebration and give it what it's due. So I thought this would be good for us to talk about that Holy Feast of Holy Family now, so that we can give it its proper celebration. I think the key there is to understand that we're striving to be a holy family. When you look at St. Joseph, no man's probably going to be St. Joseph. Obviously, none of us are going to be our blessed Lord, and nobody's probably going to be Our Lady. But they are an example. Father Chris and I love basketball, so everybody, the GOAT, right? The GOAT is Michael Jordan. There may never be another Michael Jordan, and so you measure yourself to the GOATs, and those three are the GOATs. And so, but you try to emulate Michael Jordan. You try to do the moves that he has. You might not have a 48-inch vertical. You might not be 6'6" and have these giant hands, but you can still try. You can still try to do the things that he did. So I think when it comes to Holy Family, that's always been my example. Like, what made them so dang holy? What made them who they were? And so if you obviously take each individual person, again, I've talked about this all throughout the season of Advent. They were people of faith, although they didn't always understand the faith. They didn't always understand the direction that God wanted them to go, whether that was Joseph or Mary. You're going to be the mother of God. How? Okay, fine, I don't understand. I don't have to understand. I say yes. St. Joseph, take Mary into your home, although she's not, that's not your son. I don't understand that, but you know what? I'm going to do it, Lord. I'm going to prove my faith, and I'm going to do it. So they were people that live the faith. And that's a great example for all of us. We don't have to understand what God's calling us to do. Sometimes I'll come up to somebody at church, and you may do the same thing, and I'll say, hey, can you be a Eucharistic minister today? Something as simple as that. Or, hey, can you read today? And most of the time their response is what? No, I can't do that. How can Father ask me to do that? I've never done that. And I'm like, well, you don't understand maybe why I'm asking you to do it. Why I'm asking you to do it is because I need somebody, usually. But, this is an opportunity to say, okay, well, I'm just going to do it. Father's asking me to do this. And so we're going to say yes to that in that moment. Although I don't quite understand, I maybe don't even know how to do it yet, but I'll figure it out. So that's when I think about the Holy Family and that great celebration, that's what I think about. How can I become like, we all come from families. All of us come from a family. None of us would be here without a mother and a father. So none of them are perfect.
The Feast of the Holy Family also gives us an opportunity to understand that, like you were saying, we are all bred in families. We're all raised in family and community of persons and a community of love, and really a love that reflects the Holy Trinity. And that's why St. Augustine, I believe it was, really talked about the beauty of the Trinity as a great family, a great unit of love. And that's where love is found, love is taught, love is served. And that's what family units breathed into the greater communities, which brings out greater love. And so we need to continue to build up good and holy families to emulate the Holy Family of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, especially in our own time when there's such a push from our culture to stress the importance of the individual and the individual's, free rights. And
I think the culture teaches us not to have families, to be an individual and be on your own and get a career and make a bunch of money. But I think the culture and a lot of young people, or people that are grown up in that culture, have understood that that's not what's going to bring.
We're social creatures at heart. God didn't make us to be, standalones. God Himself exists. He is in the Trinity. He is community. There's being is literally, that's who God is. And so we're not made to be isolated beings in this world on our own. And the world needs to figure that out.
And we're meant for love. And there's no greater way to love than to have a family. If you're a man, there's no greater love than to give your life for your wife, and vice versa. You give your life to your kids. It's just this model that everything is modeled after the Holy Family. You look at the church. I say this all the time, a family should be modeled, the parish here, you have a pastor, you have a parish council, you have an associate, you have parishioners. It's a family. The pastor should be he's the man of the house, but your parish council is your number one advisor, and that's your wife. You don't make a decision without their guidance, without their input. Your parishioners are kind of your children, You're trying to do what's best for them. You're trying to sacrifice. You're trying to give them their life, your life for them. The church is modeled after the family. And so whether it's your actual family, whether it's your parish family, whether it's your church, following the example of the Holy Family, seeking God's will, living your faith, that's what's going to make us holy. That's what's going to get us all to heaven. That's what's going to bring heaven and earth to become, thy kingdom come on earth as it is in heaven. That's going to bring these two things into one.
And I'm here to tell you, when we're in heaven, it's not going to be just you and staring at God for all eternity, but it's going to be you in a community of persons filled with the fullness of love, gazing upon the grandeur, the glory of God. So from the cross, Jesus said to St. John, "Behold your mother." And when he said that to St. John, obviously he was saying that to the whole church. And so Christ, being the head of the church, is the groom, the bridegroom, and the church itself is the bride. And so the church is really called to, like you've been talking about, to mimic that whole idea of the Holy Family, as the church is wedded to Christ, the head. The two are one, they cannot be separated. The church does not act without Christ the head, and vice versa. The church, when Christ speaks, the church speaks, and the church speaks, Christ speaks. The two cannot be separated. There's no such thing as kind of divine divorce from that. And so there's a very Marian dimension to the church, as in the church is our mother, the church is our guide, she's our nurturer, she informs us, she presents us the truth. She's our teacher. She's sort of our vessel, in a sense, of going towards that. And then Joseph, on that end, you have a model of near perfection. I mean, he wasn't immaculate. He was conceived, with sin. I'm sure he sinned during his life, but about as a perfect model as you can, to following most completely, submitting to the will of God, of putting down your own interests, your own wants, your own needs, to fulfilling God's will, God's plan for the salvation of literally the world. Joseph could have said no. Mary could have said no. They said yes.
Yeah, too, I think about our own families, men and women are not the same. They complement each other. Again, the culture wants to try to teach us all that we're all the same, and men and women are not different, but they are totally different. And the great thing about that is you, again, man and woman and husband and wife, and you get them together, and if they're all sort of focused on the same thing, you get the perfect complement of the two. So again, when I think of Joseph, I think of that, all of us men sort of need, all men, everybody, children need, I think, thinking about my own father and grandfather, my uncles, they were the ones that throw you in the pond or throw you in the river and say, figure out how to swim. They're the ones that said, let's go camping. They're the ones that said, let's go climb over this next mountain and see what's over there. They're the ones that sort of get us out of our comfort zones, and say, God's calling you to something cool and unique. Like, don't be afraid. Like, let's go. And I often think about St. Joseph in that way, spiritually, the fact that he would be a man of, quit being scared of things. Like, oftentimes men are like, let's go, almost, to the fact that it's to a fault almost, like let's go too far sometimes. But that's what I think about St. Joseph and men in general, think about men in my life that take their faith seriously. So in terms of our Lady, I think about Mom. When we're sick, I want Mom to take care of me. They're always there to comfort us, to reassure us, to tuck us in at night, to sing songs to us. You need that feminine aspect in your life. And so when you think about the Holy Family, they provide both of those things to us in our lives. We're not, they're not solo parenting. Joseph is the patron of the family, right? Our Lady is our Lady. So we have a father and we have a mother who are constantly praying for us, constantly wants what's best for us, and so we'd kind of be dumb not to continue to reflect on their lives, to ask for their intercessory prayer in our own lives. We're here today because Sam Kirby and his crew or his team or his business have offered to do these YouTube videos for us to help us to evangelize. And, we're talking about the Holy Family, and he mentioned to St. Joseph that he has a 3-month-old, and he's like, he often reflects on the fact that when the baby's crying or when he needs the chair or whatever the case, baby's hungry, you got all this stuff going on, but you got work and you got all these other things to focus on. And he says he often focuses on St. Joseph and the fact that, not only does he got to be the mother or the husband of Mary and this, baby that's not his, but, not soon after he's born, it's like, now you got to go to Egypt. Like, Herod's killing all the babies. And he's like, what? I just kind of got comfortable with Israel, and now we got to, head out of town. We don't know the language. I mean, I don't have a job when I get there. Like, what are we going to do, But yet he does it. And so, St. Joseph is, again, a great example and how to live our everyday life, whether you're a priest or whether you're, a father.
I think there's something about fatherhood, and it's true, about this completely changes a man. I was at WKU years ago with Sam. We were in the wind ensemble together there. But I think about some of my other friends. I'm at this age now where all my friends are starting to have kids, and maybe their second, third, or fourth kid. I think about my best friend Jeff, and just the minute he had his son, just totally different person. His life was completely changed. He was always a good guy, but just now he was just more sacrificial than I've ever seen before, doing whatever he could to serve his family, to serve his son, to do what he could to take care of him. And then, his wife was then diagnosed with cancer, and so he's given even more of himself and more of himself. And the guy isn't perfect, but I see him and he's dealing with all this stuff. He's just going, giving. And I'm wondering, how much more does the guy got to give? But it reflects very much the St. Joseph, and I think he goes to St. Joseph and relies on some of the grace and asks for his intercession as well. Say, hey, get me through this.
Yeah, and not to leave Our Lady out. I think we often imagine Our Lady. We see pictures with her and the baby Jesus, and we think, she focused on Jesus and that was it. But that is not the case. She would have been a wife to St. Joseph. She would have loved him. She would have willed his good. And so she's a great example for all women who, of course, are married, all wives, and the fact that, because again, when you have children, it's easy to focus on the children. It's easy to say, okay, I'm a mom now. I've got to focus on this little thing now. It needs me. But your first vocation is always to marriage, and it's to your husband. And Mary wouldn't have forgotten that. We don't hear a lot about it, but when Joseph's like, hey, we got to go to Egypt, Mary's not complaining and saying, no, we're staying here. No, she's going to Egypt, She trusts Joseph's judgment, and she would have done that. Again, we don't hear a lot about it in Scripture, but she would have been a devoted wife as much as she was a mother.